Hello and welcome back to What's Millie Making, where I am Millie and this is the space where I talk about the past, present, and future of my knitting. Today's video is a new one for me. It's kind of, I wanted to say it's a knitting vlog, but it's more like overview roundup of the New Jersey Wool Walk. What is a wool walk? It is basically a yarn crawl where local stores come together and they'll have special trunk shows or exclusive colorways, and sometimes there's like collectibles, and I guess it's just a fun way for local fiber folks to appreciate their local yarn stores. So I have attended the wool walk both years, or I guess this is my third year. So the previous 2 years that I've been knitting and currently my third year, I have attended the wool walk, and while it has been a lot of fun and a great opportunity to visit some of the yarn stores that are a little further away from me, I have maybe not made the best purchasing decisions during the wool walk. So my goal this year was to plan and budget, not go in with like a purely vibe basis and actually like know what I'm going to buy and make with it. If you just want to see the little clips I took of the store, haul footage, and maybe a little bit of chatting about like what I saw at the store, and in my notes I oddly also kind of wrote about the parking situation. I don't know, whenever I go somewhere new I tend to look at like the parking situation, so I included that too. Anyways, if you want to see that stuff, there's going to be a timestamp, but I wanted to talk a little bit first about how I planned and budgeted. This year I was determined to be more regimented with my purchases. My goal basically is to, whatever I buy, I'd ideally like to knit it up before next year's wool walk. That seemed pretty reasonable to me. That way, next year when I go on the wool walk, I won't have like a haunting voice in the back of my head saying, "You have too much yarn, don't buy more yarn." Because I like participating in these events. I want to enjoy them. I want to get the yarn. I want to knit it up. I want to experience it, and I don't want it to be a burden. I also want to put out the disclaimer that like my personal planning budget is in no way a reflection or judgment of other people's purchasing decisions. Like, honestly, feel free to buy as much or as little yarn as you like. I think as long as your yarn buying is not hurting anybody mentally, physically, financially, like go forth and buy yarn or don't buy yarn, whatever floats your boat. I just wanted to share my personal process in case someone else is out there and also trying to find like that happy balance between enjoying yarning events and not coming home feeling guilty and overburdened with yarn. My first step was to look through my yarn stash, and my reasoning was twofold. One, I kind of just wanted a reminder of what I had, and you know, I'm excited. When I bought these yarns, I was excited to knit them up, and I'm still excited to knit them up. And it was kind of like a reminder to myself that you don't need to buy a sweater quantity at every yarn store that you visit. In fact, don't buy any sweater quantities this year because you have some left over from last year. The second reason I looked at my stash as well as my Ravelry queue was to see if I had any yarn gaps for upcoming projects. For instance, if I had a mohair but I needed to find a wool, or I have a main color for a colorwork project and I needed to buy a contrast color, that sort of thing. After I pulled on my yarn and looked at everything, it was time to start plotting. So in addition to the list of projects that I was missing yarn for, I also had a list of 3 projects where I was sort of, you could say, collecting yarn for. That way I could buy yarn from multiple places and have a complete project without buying a sweater quantity at a time. And so the 3 projects were, first was this shruggy. It's inspired by this Marc Jacobs Heaven piece from a few years ago, and when I first started knitting I really wanted to attempt to knit something like this, but I just didn't have the skill set, whereas now I'm a little bit more confident and I think I could come up with something. Like, I have an idea of how I would want to shape this. And also, so this shruggy, when it came out, like Bella Hadid wore it, Emma Chamberlain wore it, as well as Olivia Rodrigo. And I'm seeing Olivia Rodrigo in concert next month, so ideally I'd like to knit this up before that, then so I can wear it to the concert. Project number 2 that I was collecting yarn for is some sort of blanket. This year I'd really like to cast on a blanket. I'm not 100% sure on what project, like specific pattern I'm going to use. As of right now, I'm thinking either the Jigsaw blanket by Stephen West or the yet to be released, not Sweet Shop, Quilt Shop blanket, Quilt blanket by Penrose Knits. I'm not 100% sure on the name, but I will obviously put it on the screen. So even though I don't know exactly which one I'm going to knit, I have a general idea of like the color palette that I would like to use. So I was also on the lookout for sock skeins or mini skeins that could go into this project. And the third project that I was collecting on for is the Purl clay sweater by Midori Hirose. I actually bought the main color that I've been wanting to use for this sweater 2 years ago at the New York City yarn crawl, and so this is the color that I bought to hopefully use as the main colorway for the Purl clay sweater. It is Sea Change fibers. Their Sea Cliff fingering base. It's 100% US Rambouillet, and oh my god, it's so soft, and it's really nice, like deep navy blue colorway. And originally I had bought a bunch of like sock minis to make the yoke. I'm assuming at some point, I'm assuming I have put up a picture of the sweater, and if I have not, it is here. Anywho, so I had bought a bunch of sock minis. I had bought a bunch of sock minis to do the color work in the yoke. This isn't, did I say this is not superwash? But the more I knit, obviously the more experienced I'm getting as a knitter, and I've learned that one, I don't necessarily enjoy knitting color work as much with superwash yarns, and number two, this sweater is knit with a pretty loose gauge. Like, I generally have a tough time meeting Midori Hirose's gauge as is, and I think a like non-superwash woolly wool will fluff up and fit that. Basically, with a non-superwash wool, I think I will be able to get closer to the gauge versus with a superwash wool. So in the pattern, there is kind of like a little coloring sheet. So I made up a little color schematic of the colors that I would like to get to make the yoke. I also had some of these colors already in stash, and I actually... So last year I won 2 prizes at the Wool Walk last year, and one of them is I won 5 different balls of Jamieson's Shetland Spindrift. So here's 2 of them. This one is the colorway Ivy, and this one is the colorway Sage. Sage and Ivy, Sage. This just making me think of Gossip Girl because of Ivy. Was there something? Oh my god, there was a Sage too. Oh my god, this is so Gossip Girl coded. Season 6 or 7 Gossip Girl. No wonder. Okay. Totally got sidetracked there. What was I talking about? Oh, the yoke of the Purl clay sweater. So I wanted to use some of the Shetland colors that I won last year and then get a few more to fill out the colorwork yoke, because I think you need 18 colors in total. Yeah. So as you can probably tell from this video, I love planning. So is it really surprising to hear that I went on the website of every single store before I visited and looked at what they had to not only come up with color options for this Purl clay sweater, but also just give myself a starting off point, like a shopping list of what I wanted to get. And did that stop me from spending like a half an hour contemplating what I wanted to buy in the actual store? No, but I think I would have spent more money and time if I had not done this. In addition to my shopping list, I also made a list of non-Yarny items that I was on the lookout for, including some magazines, random notions. I think I wanted to buy needle cords. I don't remember. So yeah, if I didn't find a yarn that I wanted to buy at a store, maybe I could buy a non-yarn item that I already wanted to purchase anyways. I've tried to figure out how to organize these videos. I am going to go in chronological order of the ways that I went to the stores, and I will share the name of the store, the location of the store, some of the yarn brands that I was interested in that they carried, and then I will also talk about what I bought and what the discount was on what I bought. And for some reason I also put in, I think I said this in the beginning, I don't know if I left it in the edit, but I also put in a little bit of information on the parking, because I don't know, sometimes, like, if I am going to go somewhere where there's street parking, I want to be prepared. I need to know that there's street parking beforehand, so I'm mentally ready for that. I don't know how useful that information is if you're not local or you're not planning on visiting these stores. Then again, if you're not local or planning on visiting the stores, this video is not necessarily useful anyways. You were just watching it because you want some yarn content. So yeah, I will leave in the parking information. One thing I forgot to mention is during the wool walk, they always have these special like limited edition stitch markers made by Trinkles, and they have, in the 3 years that I've been going, they've had different designs, and this year's are, wait, maybe it's better if I do like an overlay video. Yes, okay. I'll put an overlay video. This year's were these little colorful Trinkle stitch markers, the acrylic ones, and they had a little New Jersey state sign on them. Last year's, oh my god, last year's were even cuter in my opinion. There were these little, why do I keep wasting time? I keep saying, oh, I'm gonna do an overlay, and then okay, I think that is honestly as good as it's gonna get. So these are last year's stitch markers, and each store has a different colorway. And basically, if you go to every single store, you should have over 20 different colorful stitch markers. Oh, there, you can finally see it. So the wool walk happened from Wednesday to Sunday, and last year I was really sad that a lot of the stores that I went to had sold out of the stitch markers by the time I was able to go to them. And I am a trinkets girly, as I don't know how many of my trinkets you can see behind me, but needless to say, if you follow me on Instagram, you know I'm a trinkets girly. So I really love collecting the little Trinkles stitch markers. So what I did this year, I noticed that a lot of the stores actually offered a pre-order of the stitch markers on their website. You could either like order it to pick it up during the wool walk, or they would ship it to you. So whatever store I knew I was attending that offered the stitch markers on pre-order, I did that, and I'm happy to report that I was able to get stitch markers from every single store that I went to, and I will insert like an image of all of them lined up because I just think they're so cute and I'm absolutely obsessed with them, which is really silly because they're just little pieces of acrylic, but they're cute and I love them. What can I say? So the stores that I went to on the first day, last year, I don't think I was able to get stitch markers at 2 of them because I went later into the wool walk, so they didn't have the pre-order that I could find. So I made a plan to go there first, and they're also pretty close to me. That was my logic. My first stop of the wool walk was to Yarnia, which is one of my favorite local yarn stores. It is in Montclair. I can't say it's in downtown Montclair because Montclair is a pretty large suburb and it has multiple cute like downtowny areas. The area that Yarnia is in, there are a few lots that you can park in, and there's also a lot of street parking as long as you don't go like on the weekend during brunch time. I have never had problems with parking I've never had trouble finding parking outside of those times, and the area is really cute. There's a lot of coffee shops. There's also an independent bookstore nearby, and I can't deny that sometimes I go there for a double dopamine hit, go to the bookstore, go to the yarn store, and then maybe triple it, get a coffee. Not a bad way to spend a Saturday afternoon. Oh, and it's pretty easy to get to from New York City because there is a train station stop like right down the block from the store. I'm pretty sure I parked right in front of the train station. Anyways, Yarnia is one of my favorite local yarn stores because they carry Noro, a lot of La Bien-Aimée. Like I feel like they're always bringing in new La Bien-Aimée bases for the wool walk. They had their Surrey silk alpaca lace, I think the Kumo base for the first time, Kelborn woolens, but then they also have like a lot of more affordable yarn, acrylic baby yarns, and I know every store is going to have their own special curation of things that they carry, but my personal favorites I've noticed tend to be stores that are able to cater to a wide variety of budgets, that they have maybe something for somebody who has a huge budget or no budget, as well as people who are maybe just starting off or don't have the biggest budget but still want to take part in fiber crafts. And they also seem to cater to both crocheters and knitters. I am a knitter, but I have been always looking at like taking crochet classes at one of the local yarn stores near me, and I always notice that Yarnia has crochet classes too. So a lot of the stores during the wool walk will have door prizes. So basically just purely for going to the store, you are entered into some sort of prize. And at Yarnia, they always have also like if you spend X amount of money, you can win a certain prize as well. And I remember last year I think one of the prizes that I got, like I think if you spend like over $100, they'll give you some sort of coupon for the future, and I got like a 20% off coupon, which is really nice to spend later on for my birthday month. Because it is one of my local yarn stores and I'm a semi-regular shopper there, I really held myself back this year and I only picked up one skein of yarn. This is a yarn that I've actually been eyeing for quite some time, but I just never had a project that I could justify buying a whole sweater quantity of it. It's Line du Nord Cash Silk Light, and it is in this soft, like purpley colorway. I don't have the name on the label, but if I can find it like on their website, I will put the name on the screen. I was really interested in this yarn. First of all, it is so soft. It also comes in a nice like variety of colorways. The composition is 68% merino, 16 microns, 22% silk, and 10% cashmere. It is 25 grams and 159 yards. So it is cute and soft and fluffy, and I'm hoping to use it in my bolero project. It actually reminds me quite a bit of Moondrake Fua Fua in both like the texture and the construction of the yarn. Fua Fua does have a much higher cashmere content. I think that's like 70% cashmere, but this is considerably cheaper because even though this is a 25 gram ball, let's say for 50 grams, you would, I think this was $16 or $15. It's $15. So if you bought two balls, it'd be $30 for 50 grams versus Fua Fua, which is $42 for 50 grams. So it is $12 less per 50 grams. I'm assuming that I'm going to enjoy this, so I could definitely see myself buying a sweater quantity in the future. So the sales that they had at Yarnia, a lot of their like commercially dyed yarns, as well as Nora yarns. Is Nora listed a commercial? I don't know. Basically, a lot of the, local yarn store staple brands were 20% off. I don't think this one was 20% off, but I think the other yarns by this brand were, but maybe because it's like a luxury fiber, it wasn't included in the sale. And they also have always like bins of clearance yarn during the wool walk. Last year I bought the Ito that I used to make my step-by-step sweater by Florence Mills, and this year I was also tempted by some of the yarn that they had in the clearance bins. They had some Pasquale yarn. They always have like really nice stuff in the sale section. It's not like reject yarn that nobody wants, as mean as that sounds, but it wasn't in my plans. I didn't have anything that I planned on making with it, so I resisted. And that was my first stop of the wool walk. My second stop of the day was to Beyond Yarn in Union. This is also in a downtown area that has a lot of food options and like a wide variety of food options. There's a pho place. I think there's some Afro-Caribbean places. There's a bonchon chicken. There's also like some cafe and pastry places. So you're really not lacking for options for food. Most of it is street parking, but this time when I went, I actually was able to find a spot behind the store where there's like a small lot. So that was a nice bonus. I don't visit the store as often as I would like, as it is a little bit of a drive for me, but whenever I go, they always have such a warm, welcoming community vibe. Like there's always people knitting and crocheting and welcoming you to the store. And in the past, I didn't have as much time to like give it a proper browse, but I've bought a lot of good sock yarns from them because they have like a whole wall of hand-dyed sock yarns and mohairs, but they also carry a lot of commercially dyed sock yarns as well. Like I've bought Plymouth yarn from there. They had some of like the Croy sock yarns that I couldn't find at Michael's, like the colorways, some Lang sock yarn, self-striping sock yarn. So whenever I feel like picking up a skein of sock yarn, I know where to go. The day that I went, they had a trunk show with the local dyer, Lily Loops, who is so sweet. She is based in Staten Island, and if you have watched some of my previous videos, you've probably seen me talk about her yarn because I have purchased it before. Actually, the last time she had a trunk show at Beyond Yarn. And she's so sweet. She actually encouraged me to work on my wave sweater, and it is part of the reason why I'm almost there. I picked it back up and I'm almost done with the second sleeve. Okay, but back to the yarn. So she has a ton of interesting bases. Like she has sequins and like beaded bases and silk mohair and like DK weight mohair and like different fingering weight bases aside from just like 100% superwash merino. And the yarn that I knew that I was going to buy before even going to the trunk show was some sort of unspun yarn, because I don't know, I don't really see a lot of unspun yarn in stores or from hand dyers, but I did buy some of her hand dyed unspun yarn last after the whole woolen folk fiasco, and I started knitting the Fayuhi by Noriko Ichikawa, and I'll insert pictures of mine. So I used her pink unspun hand-dyed yarn as one of the contrast colorways, but for my second contrast color, I think first I tried using a brown and I didn't like how it looked, and then I started using a red, and I think it's like a mix of various Surrey scraps that I had, and I just don't necessarily love the combination together. So what I did is this time I bought these cakes, I should say, of unspun yarn in this really pretty lavendery color. And again, the lighting is not color accurate, so I will insert like a picture or some B-roll footage of the yarn where I think the color representation is a bit more accurate. So my plan is to frog my current Fayuhi, or not maybe frog the whole thing, frog the red motif, and then go back and reknit it with the purple instead. And I think I will like the way those colors look better. I feel like, I don't know, I don't like how there's such a big textural difference between the two contrast colors that I used. I also really like that in the pink unspun that I used, you can see like the tonality and like the hand-dyed aspect of the yarn, and I'm hoping the same thing happens with this purple. Beyond Yarn also had some donated skeins from Lavender Fiber Co. They were all $20, and all the money was going towards Children's Specialized Hospital, so I did pick up 2 skeins from there as well. They're both in this like peachy pinky sort of colorway, and so they're unlabeled. When I initially picked them up, I thought they were both Surrey, but when I came home I realized one is Surrey and one is mohair, but it actually works out perfectly because I'm going to be using the Surrey in the bolero that I plan on making. It actually worked out perfectly because, like I said, the Surrey I will use for the bolero, and then the mohair I'm going to use as a contrast color for a test knit of a sweater that I'm working on. It is the Norfolk sweater by, I can't remember the designer's name off the top of my head, but I will have it on the screen somewhere. And I actually found a perfectly matching wool in my stash. I bought this wool during last year's wool walk. It is by the Joyful You, and it is plant dyed by, I think, Natter, and it was also like locally hand dyed somewhere in New Jersey. I'm not sure because the store closed after the wool walk, sadly, but I think the people who are running the store retired. Yeah, I honestly did not plan it, but I think the color match worked out really nicely. I will be swatching and washing this though, because I've never knit with a plant dyed yarn and an acid dyed yarn together. So I just want to make sure like nothing bad happens, that they all vibe together well. My last step of my first day was to Will and Grace, which I can't deny is my favorite downtowny area close to me. There are a lot of coffee shops and just like general shops and restaurants that I guess I happen to frequent. There is even a store there that sells Smeeskies and Sunny Angels. If you know, you know. Once again, it's in a downtown area, so it's mostly street parking, but there are also some lots and like individual parking spots that you can pull into nearby. This is another store that's also really accessible from the city because there is a train station stop from Penn Station like right there. It's like not even a 5-minute walk. Maybe it's a 5-minute walk. Back to the yarn store. They are packed with the good stuff. They also have Noro, Brooklyn tweed, hedgehog fibers. They also have some like opal sock yarn. What else do they have? Oh, they have Blue Sky Fibers wool stock, as well as Northlight Fibers. So I think like Northlight Fibers, who are based in Rhode Island, they closed down their yarn production, and then they sold all of their like leftover yarn to Will and Grace. I just honked. They sold all their leftover yarn to Will and Grace, so they have a really big selection of Northlight Fibers yarn. And as long as it is in stock, I keep eyeing it because it's so soft, and it's like all American wool, milled in the US. I do have one sweater quantity in stash, but I was tempted to buy another sweater quantity during the wool walk. I stayed strong and I did not. I bought only what was on my list. if you have seen my Make 9 video and my Spring Knitting Plans video, this yarn may be familiar. This is Shelter by Brooklyn Tweed, and I bought 3 skeins to hopefully now have enough yarn to make the Hannah sweater by Junko Okamoto. I bought like 7 or 8 skeins during last year's wool walk, and I'm not really concerned about having different dye lots because the sweater has like a patchworky design, so I think it will work out fine, and hopefully I can. Honestly, I don't think I want to cast it on in the spring, but maybe it will be a summer cast on, which seems silly to knit an worsted Aran weight sweater in the summer, but who said I needed to be logical about my knitting? Nobody. I forgot to say at Wool & Grace, all the yarn was 20% off, including the Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, which I bought. I will say fingers crossed I get it done before next year's wool walk. So my first stop on day 2 was to the Blue Purl in Madison, but I think this is like their last month in that location, so probably talking about the area is not particularly helpful. They had a huge Miss Babs chunk show going on there. They honestly had so much yarn. I was overwhelmed, low-key. One thing I found interesting about Miss Babs is they had interesting like amounts of yarn, so to say. Like there were 30-gram skeins, there were 200-gram skeins. Like I feel like you don't necessarily see those amounts frequently. I think if you enjoy like knitting sweaters with superwash merino, the 200 yarn skeins would be really nice because you're not joining in a skein as often, so you don't have as many ends to weave in. And I say that specifically for the superwash because when I knit with non-superwash wool, I honestly just like spit splice. Like I was saying, I was honestly overwhelmed with the vast amount of yarn they had from the Miss Babs trunk show, so instead I got a magazine. I got the last issue, or the last and latest, sadly, issue of Pompton magazine, which is their spring 2024 issue, and I think they had like all their magazines for 20% off, and I think because Pompton is discontinued, the Pompton magazine was discounted as is. I think I got this for like $17. I was tempted to get some yarn at the Blue Purl because they have a lot of mohair there. They have Isair mohair, they have Labetian Bouche mohair, Rowan mohair, Sanaskar mohair, and I think a lot of it was 20% off. Some of it may have been 10% off. I took a picture of like the paper that they had that had like the breakdown of what was discounted by how much, and I will include that in the video. Back to the Pom-Pom magazine that I bought. I bought it because, one, I was sad that Pom-Pom is going out of business and I wanted like the last issue for posterity's sake, and 2, there actually are some patterns that I was interested in knitting. So surprisingly, one that initially hadn't interested me, but when I was looking through the magazine, it actually caught my eye. It is a scarf, the selvage scarf. I'll try to put in a better picture from Ravelry. So I think the reason why I really like this scarf is it is knit, but it looks like it was woven. I really like the acne scarves, and I feel like this pattern could be a good framework to attempt to like a dupe acne scarf type of scarf. Acne scarf kind of scarf. But you get what I'm saying. Also, this pattern on the cover, I follow someone on Instagram and they made 2 versions of this sweater, and both versions are so cool. One is a black and white version, and one they use like rainbow colored scraps to make this sweater, and it was really so inspirational. I'd love to have the pattern in my library if I ever want to make something similar. Oh, and there's also matching pants with the sweater. I've never had the urge to knit pants because A, I assume it'll take forever, and B, I'm just kind of afraid of it like felting or ripping along my thighs or butt, and I would be really sad. Honestly, all the patterns are so pretty. My second and final stop of day 2 was to Rose of Purl in Chester. This I think is the farthest yarn store for me, and I was contemplating not going, but I remember I really enjoyed visiting the store last year, and they were also open until 8, so I said, okay, they stayed open late. I don't want to say I'm rewarding them, but it's kind of like my mindset. Like, they stayed open till 8. Like, I gotta make it worth it for them. Like, gotta be one of the customers that tell them, like, yes, it is a good idea for us to stay open till 8 during the wool walk. Parking wise, they had some parking behind the store, and they also had some street parking. As this video goes on, it is probably obvious like which areas I'm familiar with and which areas I'm not. Since this area is a little bit further from me, I'm not really familiar with what's going on in the area, but it is like on a cute downtowny street. And I noticed there was like a pizza place nearby, and there was a really pretty florist store next door. So yeah, there's definitely other stuff to see. Back to the yarn store. Oh my god, they have so much yarn. And they have so many really nice non-superwash woolly wools. And they also have superwash yarns, but like I'm more interested in the non-superwash woolly wools. So that was what I was attracted to. Like they have Studio Donegal. They have the yarn, and they have like some of their woven ponchos and blankets and stuff. They have a lot of Noro. They have some like not farm yarn, Green Mountain Spinnery, I think. I've seen like other people mention their yarn, and I've always wanted to try it, and I was definitely heavily tempted while I was at the store. What I ended up buying was 2 skeins of Noro. What I came home with was 2 skeins of Noro Silk Garden Sock Solo in the colorway T81, which is a pretty like lavendery color, and it's actually quite similar to the color this is T81, right? It's similar to the colorway T82, which is the Ome colorway. It's like a pinky colorway that's really similar to this. And I was able to buy 3 skeins of that colorway last fall, but I am a little bit afraid of playing yarn chicken with just 3 skeins because I wanted to knit the trotso sweater with it. And basically my plan was, this looks really similar, so I could either try to fade this in or do some sort of color blocking or striping action and knit the trotso sweater with both the purple and the pink. I haven't figured out the full logistics of it, but I think the colors look really well together. And they also had, I think, 20% off most of the yarns they had in store, including this Noro. And they also had some Noro on clearance that I think was like 30 to 40% off. And again, it took a lot of self-control to step away, but I did not have plans for it. Did not need another sweater quantity, but that's just something to know. If you plan on going to the store, maybe you too will find some Noro on sale. This Noro magazine from last spring, summer, as well as this Vogue knitting magazine from last spring, summer. I don't know if I'm not a big like summer knitter, so I'm unsure if I will be knitting any of the patterns. I don't know, I just like looking through knitting magazines. Like I have yet to knit a single pattern to completion from any of the books or knitting magazines I have, but I just love having them and looking at them, and I'm a collector. Friday, I was kind of tired, and also I did some poor planning, so I only made it to one store, and I made it literally 15 minutes before they closed. It was Yarnstormers in Cranford, downtown, and it was just like, this is like my poor planning. I did not give myself enough time to find parking on a Friday night in a downtown area that I've never been to before, so that was slightly stressful. But after I found parking, it was easy enough to get to the store. This store is quite new. I think they only opened like last summer or last holiday season. They had some locally dyed yarns as well as some Cascade yarns. So what I got is this skein of Cascade Heritage, which is their 75-25 sock yarn, and I made my January red socks with this yarn, and oh my god, my camera literally like cannot even compute this colorway. It is a neon pink, and even though the color that I'm seeing on the screen is not color accurate, this is like blindingly bright in real life. I haven't decided yet if I want to purely put this in my blanket or if I also want to make a pair of socks with it, because I don't know, I feel like it would be really fun to wear like an all black outfit and then just have these like obnoxiously neon socks. I think they could also look good in some colorwork socks if I fancied. On Saturday, my first stop was to Panera to get some coffee. My second stop was to Natter, and I can never pronounce the town name correctly, so I'm just gonna put it on the screen. They were bustling, so the store was really busy, and it was just like a fun, energetic kind of vibe. Like it wasn't busy stressful, it was busy like, oh my god, we're all here, we all love yarn and knitting and crocheting, and we're all excited to be here. And I think over the past year, they have gotten a lot more yarn in store. Like they have so much more cascade and lang yarns, amano yarns, just a lot of stuff. And I can definitely see myself going back specifically for yarn for gift knits because they had so much cascade. And I feel like I'm late to the bandwagon, but everything I've knit with Cascade so far, I've really enjoyed. Parking wise, they do have a parking lot in the back, but because it was so crowded, I wasn't able to get a spot. So I just parked at the Chase Bank next doors. And I don't think I was taking spots away from any bank patrons because it was a Saturday and the lot was empty. Technically, I am a patron of Chase Bank, so I think it was okay. It was fine to park. In addition to all the commercial yarns I was talking about, they also had a huge table of Sheepyshire yarns, which is another local dyer based out of Pennsylvania, and they had so many bases there, like everything from lace weight to bulky. They also had a table with their Wool Walk exclusive colorway, which is called Tulip Field, and it's so pretty. It's like pinks and purples and oranges, and then there's like speckles of greens in there. And I got a skein on their Pixie base, which is a DK weight base, 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 5% stellina, and 231 yards. I think all the Sheepyshire yarn was also 10% off, which was nice, of course. Who doesn't love a sale on hand-dyed yarn? And my purpose for this is to make a pair of DK weight socks, which I have never done before. I kind of lost my sock mojo after I cast on and made the first of 2 cabled socks for March. So I'm hoping that a pair of DK weight socks that will hopefully go a little bit quicker will bring back my sock mojo. I also forgot to say, last year during the Wool Walk, one of the prizes that I won was a $25 gift card to Knit Knot and Natter. So I was able to use last year's winnings towards this skein of yarn. And I think I also got a little stitch marker. Let me see if I can find it. Cute little polymer clay rose. So my second stop of the day was to Knit Tapestry. They are pretty far up north. They're like not that far from Primus if you're from New Jersey. And they also have a ton of parking spots and parking lots, so parking is easy breezy there. They have so much good yarn there. They have a lot of like European brands. They have Retrosaria, they have Knitting for Olive, they have Holstgarn. They are the only store that I have ever seen like in this area to carry Gepard garn. Like I only know of one other store in the US that carries Gepard garn, so that was really exciting. And they also have Wool Dreamers, specifically their Manchalope base, and I think they have Sauna, Moda. They have a lot of Wool Dreamers yarn too. My initial plan was to only buy some Holstgarn to use in my Paul Clay sweater yoke. Alas, I did lose the plot a little bit. I mean, I still held myself back. Like there was so much more yarn I could have bought, but I did buy a little bit more than I was planning. So here's what I got. I got 1 skein of the Holstgarn Super Soft in the color Sweet Pea, which is like lavendery purpley color, and there's like specks of yellow in there as well. And this was not on sale, but it was $6.50, so I was fine with that. I wasn't expecting it to be on sale, to be honest. And it's 50 grams, 314 yards, and I feel like a lot of people recommend this as a nice like fingering weight affordable wool option, so I'm excited to finally give it a try for myself. And I had like 2 or 3 other colorways that I was planning on getting in the Holst, but then I got distracted by La Petite Lamb's Wool by Biche and Bouche. These are also 50 gram skeins, and these were on sale, so they're originally $13.50 and then they were 20% off. So really, it wasn't that much more expensive than the Holst, and I feel like they still had that heathery look, which was why part of the reason that the Holst appealed to me, but the colors were just a little bit more vibrant, and I've just always wanted to try this brand. So it says this is a pure lamb's wool from Scotland from a family-owned fiber mill. A beautiful, natural, and scoured quality for your dreamy knitting projects. With love, Astrid and Caroline. And how could I not buy it after reading that? And these are the colors. So this one is spring green, and this one is light pink violet. Also, I always assumed that the brand itself was French because the name is French. Maybe they just source this wool in Scotland. I also got 1 skein that was not on my shopping list for the Wool Walk, but was something that I had been planning to purchase at some point. So I really want to knit the Mood Sweater by Spectacle Strick. Side note, I keep realizing that in my past podcasts I've been saying Spectacle Strick because I don't know. My I saw that and that's it just was like permanently in my mind as that, but it's actually Spectacle Strick. And the Mood Sweater is like a worsted weight sweater in a whole bunch of different colors. So I just wanted to buy a bunch of different worsted and non-superwash wools to use in that sweater. And I got this farm yarn. This is a Wrinkle in Time farm. It is a worsted weight, 200 yards. And I thought it was so cute that they have a little picture of the sheep that the yarn came from. This is chamomile, a Romney Cross U makes incredible, soft, locally mill spun yarn. When I tell you, I am tempted to go back at some point if they still have this and get a sweater quantity because it feels really, really nice. And this green is just so pretty and vibrant. And one of my 2024 goals was to knit with more locally milled and grown yarn, and this fit that bill. It's a cute little BB. Even after I had like gone home, all that stuff. So I went to the local yarn store, which is in South Orange, which is my other favorite local to me yarn store. They also have just such a warm, lovely vibe, and their parking situation. So they do have a lot in front, but I have never actually managed to get a spot there. And I feel like a lot of the spots have like specific stores assigned to them. So what I do is I just park on the street parking. If you put in Town Hall Deli in your GPS, it's like right around the corner, and that street is a one-way street, and you can just park on there and it's all good. As far as yarn curation goes, they are also one of the stores that have a lot of affordable and luxury yarns in stock. They have Spin Cycle and Lumbiana May, but they also have so many yarns that are more beginner friendly or budget friendly, and they also have quite a bit of acrylic too, which is nice. So many needles. Like you can buy the Chiagu sets there, but they also sell a lot of like the single circulars, the needle tips in the 5-inch, 4-inch, and 3-inch, as well as a lot of cords. So whenever like I need just an individual thing, I usually just go there and pick it up. When I went there on Saturday, I did win a door prize. I got this skein of Cedar House yarns, who I believe stopped dyeing, but they do make really, really pretty colors. And I have knit with their sock minis before that I bought at this store. So this is a 75-25 sapling sock base, 463 yards. I've never knit with a skein of yarn that's dyed like this, so I'm really interested to see how it knits up as socks. Like obviously some sort of striping motif, but it'll be even better once it's knit up, I think. And I just got one skein of yarn to put in my Paul Clay sweater. This is from Barocco. It is Lana's Light. It's 100% wool. It feels so nice and woolly and like nice like non-superwash wool feel, like not rough, but just I don't know, woolly. Best way to describe this wool as woolly. And this yarn is so affordable, so technically it's a sport weight, but I think it'll be fine in my Paul Clay sweater. And it is 100 grams for 383 yards, and this whole ball of yarn was $11, plus the local yarn store had 20% off most of the yarns they had in the store, so I think it was like $9 after the sale end. I feel like when I watch podcasts from like people in Europe and they like share the cost of the yarn or their projects, it's just so much more affordable than in the US, but I feel like this is one of the more affordable, like 100% wools that we can get. Like it kind of reminds me of the Tin Peer Gint by Sandusgarn, and that a 50-gram ball of that is $8. So if you're able to get like even at full price Barocco 100 grams for $11 versus that Tin Peer Gint, which like I feel like European people consider that a more affordable yarn from what I've seen. That's like $16 for 100 grams. This is $5 less. I thought I was done, but then on Sunday I went to one last yarn store because it was near my cousin's house. So I was like, okay, I can go to my cousin's house and go to the yarn store. The yarn store that I went to on Sunday is the Yarn Attic in Hillsborough, and I think it's like in a converted house. The store definitely gives me like old school yarn store vibes, but the curation is very modern. They have Sandisgarn, they have Isair, they had what's that, Vermont Mill? Oh, Junction Fiber Mill. They have Cardiff Cashmere. They had a lot of Cascade. They had West Yorkshire Spinners. Had Ito Mohair. And I remember all the Isair and the Sandisgarn was 20% off. I don't think the Ito Mohair and the Cardiff Cashmere was on sale, but a lot of stuff was on sale. And even if it wasn't on sale, it was still a really good curation of stuff. And the main reason I wanted to go there was to get more of the Jamieson's Shetland Spindrift. So originally I had planned on getting more colors of this, but because I got like all those other random yarns to use in the yoke, I didn't need more colors. So I just got one. This is the color Granny Smith. And they did have a good selection of colors at the store. They had a lot of neutrals as well as like blues and greens, reds, oranges, purples, like something all across the rainbow in the Jamieson's Shetland Spindrift base. And I got one last skein for my Paul Clay sweater. It is the Isair Alpaca 2. So I know Isair says you should hold this like double-stranded with something, but I don't need to follow the rules. I will be using this single-stranded. This is a 50% alpaca, 50% wool, 50 grams, 250 meters, and this is really, really soft and so drapey. This one was 20% off, and the Jamieson's I don't think was 20% off. I do think that it is overwhelming to look at this yarn online because there's just so many colors. So I was really happy to find a store near me that had a lot of colors in stock so that at least I can get an idea of like what they look like. I think also Brooklyn General also has a good selection of these yarns because I think they have like a wall of them or like a small shelf of them. That was a lot. That was a lot of yarn. If you made it all the way here, thank you so much for watching. My goal at this point is not to buy any more yarn until I go on my travels, and it is definitely testing my self-control because there are quite a few collections that I'm tempted by, like the new Newton collection has a really nice pink and green, and Big Little Yarn Co. Sakura collection. Oh my god, don't get me started. But one must resist. Even though this was a lot of yarn, I'm pretty happy with my purchases. I was under budget, and I did buy less than a third of what I bought last year. I actually think it might be cool to make a video next year to kind of review my purchases, see if I knit them up, would I repurchase that, and it might just kind of be like an accountability thing, like, yeah, accountability. As for the stores themselves, I think every store has something special to offer to their community, and it's really hard for me to pick my favorites, but if I had to. My two favorite stores that are local to me are Yarnia and Montclair, and the local yarn store in South Orange. I think both, again, like they cater to people of all different budgets. They cater to both knitters and crocheters, and they just have like such a warm, welcoming vibe whenever I'm in there. And then my two favorite stores that I would drive further away for their yarn curation are the Yarn Attic in Hillsborough and Knit Tapestry, which I think is in Waldwick? Yeah. If that's wrong, I will put the correct township name on the screen. I just love the curation of yarns at both those stores, and even though it is a bit of a trek, it is still worth it for me to go there like once or twice a year purely to see what they carry. I think that about wraps up this video. Did I have anything else? Oh yeah, there was actually three different instances on the Wool Walk where people came up to me and said they watched the podcast, which was so kind. So thank you so much. If you said hi to me, that truly meant a lot and made me feel even more connected to this knitting community that we have. And I hope I was not too awkward. I'm not the best with meeting strangers, but truly, I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. That meant a lot. Okay, that is truly the end. I would love to know, have you ever attended like a local yarn crawl or wool walk in your area, or has this video maybe convinced you to look one up and give it a try? My camera stopped recording because I ran out of space. I'm not sure where it cut me off, but I think I was in the outro. So I will keep this as short as possible. Thank you so much for watching. I think the next video will be Knitting Podcast episode 4, which should come out in a week or two. If you like this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and follow along for the next video. Until then, happy knitting and see you later. Bye.
You know, say.